identified or recognized as early as in 16th century. Okay, so during that time, so it was just noticed that there is involvement of the small intestine and the large intestine. So nothing was known about the etiopathogenesis. Okay, so mostly unknown some bacteria, some chronic inflammation causing bacteria were considered as the etiological factor for the Crohn's disease and the ulcerative colitis. Okay, gradually with the development of different types of microbiological techniques and molecular microbiological techniques, so finally the etiopathogenesis or the mechanism of these two conditions was well defined. Clear? Okay. So now let us try to discuss the etiopathogenesis of Crohn's disease and the ulcerative colitis. Okay. So we'll start with brief discussion of epidemiology. So just like the other pathological condition, there is a geographical distribution of this Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis. Okay. So Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis was previously more common in the Northern America, okay, Australia, northern part of the Europe, right? Mostly the developing part of the world. Okay. Now gradually, this inflammatory bowel disease is becoming more common in this developing part of the world, like Africa, Asia, okay, and other developing country of the world. Clear? So the cause for that was mainly pointed towards a theory known as hygiene hypothesis. Okay, hygiene hypothesis. So are you getting me? Are you hearing me? Hello? So can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So hygiene hypothesis. So what does it mean that in western part of the world, okay, because of their dietary habit, okay, they consumed hygienic food which was well preserved. There was no contamination of the food and all that. Okay, so that caused, okay, that affected the normal intestinal mucosal mechanism to develop during the childhood. Okay. So as I told, now this disease is becoming more common in this developing part of the world. Okay. So the cause for that may also be hygiene hypothesis, because our dietary habit has also changed. We are taking more clean food, properly stored food, usually uncontaminated food. Okay. So that may be affecting the normal development of our intestinal mucosal immunity. Okay. So what I'm trying to say is that in Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis, the normal mucosal colonic mechanism is abnormal. Either it is defective due to some defective genes which affects the normal immune mechanism, or it is due to certain inflammation, infection, which causes exaggerated response or inflammatory response. Okay. So this is in short about the epidemiology of the Crohn's disease and the ulcerative colitis. Okay. So could you understand or not? So now let us come genetic factor. Etiopathogenesis, there is not a single cause. Okay. So there are always multiple etiological factors. Okay. So we will start with the genetic factor. Okay. Genetic factors are very important for increasing the risk of inflammatory bowel disease. Okay. So genetic factor, there is a gene, okay, very important gene known as NOD2 gene, NOD capital 2, NOD2 gene. Okay. So are you understanding me or not? Are you getting me or not? So node stands for nucleotide oligomerization node factor 2, domain 2. Okay. So In normal situation, okay, if this gene is abnormal, defective, so that will affect the normal immunological response towards the various types of antigens. Okay. So in normal situation, NOD2 gene, what does it do? So this encodes a protein, intracellular protein within the epithelial cells. Okay. And this intracellular protein, normally it reacts with the peptidoglycans, protein of different types of bacteria. Okay. Thereby stimulating a factor known as nuclear factor Kb. Clear? So genetic factor is abnormal or defect in the NOD2 gene. Okay. So this will affect the normal mucosal immune mechanism. So this will become abnormal. So there will be increased nuclear factor Kv signaling pathway. Okay. More high inflammatory reaction. Okay. So this is the genetic factor. Clear? So NOD2 mutation in the NOD2 gene is one of the very important factors. Okay. Another genetic factor is Crohn's disease. Okay. If it has involved the homozygous twin, if one of the member of the twin is suffering from Crohn's disease, there is 50 times more risk for the other twin to develop the Crohn's disease. Okay. So this is known as concordance rate. So in Crohn's disease, concordance rate is about 50%. So this also points towards the genetic predisposition to the Crohn's disease. Whereas in ulcerative colitis, okay, concordance rate is 30%. Clear? So all these factors point towards the genetic predisposition to the Crohn's disease as well as the ulcerative colitis. Okay, so this is one factor. Second important factor is abnormal immune response, abnormal or exaggerated colonic mucosal immune response towards the various types of antigens. So immunological response, the criteria for proving this immunological response is the presence of immune cells, T helper 1 cells. So if you examine the mucosa, there is predominant presence of T helper 1 cell. Okay, as well as the T helper 17 cells. So presence of these cells, actually activation of these cells results in production of different types of cytokines. So cytokines like tumor necrosis factor, interleukins, benzene, okay, all will release mucosa. So this causes inflammation of the mucosa. Clear? There is also defect in the immune regulation. Interleukin 10, okay, is responsible for the mucosal immune regulation. So that is also abnormal. So all these factors find that normal colonic or intestinal immune response is abnormal or exaggerated towards the various types of antigens. Okay? So the second cause is immunism. Clear? Third factor is epithelial. In such patients, it has been seen that epithelial cells, okay, they are not tightly packed with each other. So there is always some defect in the epithelial cells. Clear? Another very important thing I forget, in genetic factor NOD2, defect in the NOD2 gene is also seen in some of the very important chronic inflammatory conditions caused by Mycobacterium tuberculosis or tuberculosis, as well as the Mycobacterium lepra. Okay, NOD2 gene defect also increases the susceptibility, the colonic susceptibility towards Mycobacterial tuberculosis infection, as well as the risk of developing Mycobacterium lepra infection. Okay, so this is the correlation. So previously it was thought that the tubercle bacilli, as well as the paratubercle bacilli may be responsible as the etiological factor in the chronic inflammatory bowel disease. Okay. So this is in short about the etiopathogenesis of inflammatory bowel disease, okay, which is common to the Crohn's disease. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So understood or not?
Sir.
Okay, 2-3 times. Now let's Crohn's disease. Okay, how the look like? What are the gross features as well as the microscopic features of Crohn's disease? Okay. So as I told, Crohn's disease is also known as regional ileitis or regional enteritis. Okay. The commonest site of involvement in Crohn's disease is the terminal part of the ileum, ileocecal valve, as well as the cecum. Okay. So majority of the cases, 40% of the cases of Crohn's disease, right, commonly starts in the terminal part of the ileum, ileocecal valve, and the cecum. Another 30% of the cases of Crohn's disease, there may be involvement of the large colon. So from cecum, inflammation will involve the ascending colon as well as the adjoining area of the colon. Clear? So 40% of the cases, there is involvement of the terminal part of the ileum, ileocecal valve, and the cecum. Okay. Another 30% of the cases, along with the small intestine, there will also be involvement of the large intestine. So could you understand? Are you getting me? Hello, just a moment. Hello? Hello? हम एक क्लास ले रहे हैं अभी, ऑनलाइन क्लास ले रहे हैं ना? नहीं यहाँ पे कॉलेज में, लाइब्रेरी में हम जाएंगे तो बात करेंगे. हाँ हाँ ठीक है ओके ठीक है. Hello, can you hear me? Are you hearing me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. So this is the involvement. Okay. Now, if we examine the intestine, small intestine in Crohn's disease becomes thickened and rubber-like, rubbery. The elasticity of the intestine is lost. So while it's thickened, it becomes rubber-like, rubbery. Okay. And in early stages of the Crohn's disease, there is involvement of the mucosa. Mucosa will show small ulcers, which are known as the aphthous ulcer. Okay. Aphthous ulcer, if you remember, aphthous ulcer is also common in the oral cavity, in the lips and the oral mucosa. Okay. So similar small ulcers will be seen in the mucosa, and they are known as the aphthous ulcers. Okay, early stages. Now, there is a lesion known as the skip lesion. If you examine the mucosa, not all the mucosa, there is not continuous involvement of the mucosa. Some area will be involved, showing ulcer, and the adjoining area will be normal. Okay, so this is known as the skip lesion. SKIP, skip lesion. Skip lesion is characteristic of this. Clear? So unlike this, in ulcerative colitis, there is total involvement of the colon, pancolitis. Okay, so skip lesion is characteristic of Crohn's disease. So got it? Now,
Yes, sir.
In later stages, these small ulcerative lesions, they go on increasing in size. These ulcerative lesions will become serpentine. Okay, serpentine, continuous. And this lesion will go on involving the submucosa, muscle coat, as well as it will go beyond the intestine. Okay, involving the surrounding or adjoining intestinal structures which are present close to the intestine. Okay. So remember, aphthous ulcer, skip lesion, there is only involvement of certain regions of the mucosa and the adjoining area escapes. So it's known as the skip lesion. Okay. So could you understand? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Oh. So there is involvement of the whole wall. The wall becomes thickened and rubbery. Okay. Now gradually in late stages of the Crohn's disease, fissure will develop. These ulcerative lesions become a serpentine-like whole of the wall. Therefore, will make segment of intestine to connect with the other segment of the intestine. Okay. Sometimes these lesions may communicate with the adjoining structure, like the urinary bladder. Okay. Fissure may develop in between the intestine, whereas intestine with bladder. Fissure or the fistula, you can say fistula. Clear? Formation of fistula is also one of the very important gross feature of Crohn's disease. So you got it? So could you? So now let us come to the microscopic. Okay, if you take a section of a small intestine which is afflicted with the Crohn's disease, microscopically how it will look like. Okay, so in what inflammation, transmural, non-cageating granulomatous inflammation. Okay, so there is granulomatous, that is granulous, but there is no cageation. So granulomatous inflammation will involve the coat, serosal coat, and sometimes even granulomas may appear in the fat, peritoneal fat. And necrosis, there will be no cageation necrosis. Okay, so transmural means involving all the layers of the intestine. Okay, transmural, non-cageating granulomatous inflammation of the entire intestine is the characteristic feature of Crohn's disease. Okay, so this is seen. Okay, in early stages, the most important thing is to make the early diagnosis of Crohn's disease. Okay, so in early cases, microscopically, what you will see, there is presence of neutrophils. Okay, and these neutrophils are more present in the crypts, intestinal crypt. So infiltration of these neutrophils along the crypt, intestinal crypt, gives the impression of abscess, crypt abscess. Okay, so crypt abscess is very important feature of Crohn's disease. About the Crohn's disease. Okay. Now let us come to the clinical of Crohn's. basically, okay, Crohn's disease, mostly involve patients. Okay, it's very interesting. Younger patients, sometimes teens, 20, may be afflicted by the Crohn's disease. And Crohn's disease has got a very important period of acute attack, followed by a period of recovery or remission. Okay, so during acute stages, Crohn's disease presents as diarrhea, fever, and pain in the abdomen. Clear? About 20% of the cases, as you know, as I have discussed, Crohn's disease mostly involves the terminal part of the ileum, cecum, and the ileocecal valve. Okay, so that is also the area where appendix arises from the cecum at the ileocecal junction. Okay, so pain, diarrhea, fever, pain mostly in the right iliac fossa. So this condition may be fused with an attack of acute appendicitis. Okay, so acute appendicitis during acute attack of Crohn's disease is one of the differential diagnoses. Okay, so that has to be ruled out. Okay, so are you getting me?
Yes, sir.
Now, sometimes in Crohn's disease, if it has involved the ileocecal valve or the proximal part of the ileum, and due to the thickening of the valve, it can present as the small intestinal obstruction, stricture. Sometimes the lumen of the small intestine will be adhesion. Due to the chronic inflammatory changes, the lumen may be obliterated. Stricture may develop. Small intestinal strictures may be seen. So it can also present as small intestinal obstruction. Okay, so that is another clinical feature of Crohn's disease. Crohn's disease also produces a variety of extra-intestinal manifestation. Okay, so this extra-intestinal manifestation of Crohn's disease may be like uveitis. Uveal tract, you know? Uveal tract of eye, you know?
Yes, sir.
So extraintestinal manifestation of Crohn's disease could be uveitis or inflammation of the uveal tract in the eye. Okay. So another extraintestinal manifestation may be migratory polyarthritis, joint pain, shifting from one joint to the other. That is known as migratory polyarthritis, as seen in rheumatic arthritis or rheumatic fever may be seen. Sometimes ankylosing spondylitis may be seen. Okay. So joint involvement are also very important extraintestinal clinical manifestations of Crohn's disease. Okay. Sometimes, as I told, Crohn's disease granulomatous inflammation from the intestine may go beyond the outside the intestine. So there may be, in some cases, there may be involvement of the biliary duct, cholangitis. It is known as, first it will involve the fatty tissue around the hepatic or biliary duct, and gradually there may also be involvement of these ducts. So this is known as cholangitis, pericholangitis. Pericholangitis may be one of the extraintestinal manifestation of Crohn's disease. Okay, clubbing may be seen. Clubbing, CLUBB clubbing can also be seen as one of the clinical manifestation of Crohn's disease. Okay. So things are clear. Are you getting me?
Yes, sir.
So this is insert about the Crohn's disease. Okay. You don't go into the detail. Okay. Etiopathogenesis is slightly difficult. Okay. So this is just like the etiopathogenesis of other conditions. Gastric carcinoma we have discussed in our previous class. Okay. So you can correlate. So genetic factor, geographical factor, node gene, immunological abnormality. Okay, so all those are the etiological factors. Now, few words about the ulcerative colitis. Okay, ulcerative colitis differs from the Crohn's disease. Okay, because ulcerative colitis will always start with the involvement of the rectum. Okay, so it always starts with the involvement of the rectum, and from rectum gradually inflammation will go upwards, involving first the distal colon, sigmoid colon, descending colon, transverse colon, and sometimes the ascending colon. So late stages, there is pancolitis. Pan means total, colon means all the parts of the colon. Okay. So the earliest, most important characteristic feature of ulcerative colitis is it will always start with involvement of the rectum, and gradually it will go on involving the parts of the colon. And late stages, the entire colon is involved, producing a condition known as pancolitis. Pan means total, colitis means inflammation. Okay. So this is, now if we examine, just like Crohn's disease, I have discussed aphthous ulcer, serpentine ulcer, and gradually thickening of the wall due to the involvement, due to the transmural granulomatous inflammation of the entire colon. In ulcerative colitis, there is just involvement of the mucosa and the submucosal region. Okay, the inflammation will start with involvement of the mucosa, and it will just involve the submucosa. It will never go beyond the submucosa. Muscular wall, serosa are never involved in ulcerative colitis. Okay. Now, if you examine the mucosa, so just to differentiate it from the Crohn's disease, there are ulcerative lesions, and these ulcerative lesions are oriented transversely along the transverse dimension of the colon mucosa. Okay, and they are usually small ulcerative lesions. They are not like a serpentine lesions. Clear? Now, in between the ulcerative lesion, there is also inflammation of the colon, colonic mucosa. So late stages, colonic mucosa develops inflammatory pseudopolyps. So there is development of a small protruding lesions into the lumen of the stomach. These are not the pseudopolyps. So pseudopolyp formation is also one of the very important gross feature of ulcerative colitis. Okay, so this will differentiate ulcerative colitis from the Crohn's disease. Okay. Now, late stages of ulcerative colitis usually causes changes in the lining mucosal epithelial cells and the glands. Okay. So late stages, because this is a more ulcerative colitis is more severe than Crohn's disease. Okay. In ulcerative colitis, the lining epithelial cells of the mucosa and the glands, they develop changes. These dysplastic changes may gradually, few percentage of the cases of ulcerative colitis, dysplastic changes will develop, and dysplastic changes will change into carcinoma of the colon, adenocarcinoma of the colon. Okay. Hello. Are you hearing me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Okay. Now, late stages of ulcerative colitis, bacteria, a variety of colonic bacteria will also infect. Okay. So, secondary inflammation by the other bacteria, more virulent bacteria will occur, and then gradually the whole intestinal wall will be involved. And this and the NORB, autonomic knob or ganglion cells which are present in the mucosa as well as in the wall. And this will result in permanent dilatation of the colon. So this is known as toxic megacolon. Okay, toxic megacolon is permanent dilatation of the colon due to the destruction of the nerve and the ganglions cells which are present in the mucosa as well as in the muscle coat. Okay, toxic megacolon. Okay. Hello. Hello.
Yes, sir. Yes,
So
sir.
one thing I forgot, in Crohn's disease, genetic factor, immunological factor as the cause I have discussed. Okay. 31 thing I forgot. Okay. Microbiota. Normally, as you know, there is presence of coliform bacteria on the surface of the mucosa. Okay. So there was commensal bacteria, microbiota. Okay. So etiopathogenesis of Crohn's disease. So one of the important factor is also abnormal colonic microbiota or microbes. Right? Normally, 50% of the fecal mass, okay, the bacteria, coliform bacteria. Okay. So Crohn's disease is also one of the causative factors. Not Vaseline, antibodies against the molecules or antigens which are present in the coliform bacteria. Okay. So are you hearing me?
Yes, sir.
So this is in short, okay? Just try to remember the difference between Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis. Okay? Finally, clinical features of ulcerative colitis. Ulcerative colitis is mostly characterized by the tenesmus, passage of, is mostly characterized by diarrhea, passage of blood-tinged, mucus-enriched fecal material. Okay? So there will be tenesmus, pain in the abdomen patient will have, and this will be followed by passage of blood and the mucus in the stool. Okay? So I think it's try to read the important things about the inflammatory bowel disease, Crohn's disease, and ulcerative colitis. Okay. Hello.
Okay, sir.
I will revise it in my next class. First day also I have to recollect things about inflammatory bowel disease. Okay. Hello.
Okay, sir.
You read
Yes,
it,
sir.
Anna? You read it,
Yes,
people.
sir.
Anna, Robbins, try to understand. In
Okay.
the next class, you can ask. Okay, if anything is not clear, please ask me. I will be happy to repeat. Okay.
Sorry.
Okay.